Welcome to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we dive into life's big stories. Everything from breakups and breakdowns to buried secrets and triumphant happy endings. It's the stuff that makes us human. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey, author of How to Divorce Sober. I'm a mentor, award-winning blogger, yoga instructor, and in a past life, a fully qualified civil engineer. You can find me at hannahharvey.uk or on Instagram at hannahharveyuk. I absolutely love to hear from you, so please get in touch with your stories, thoughts, or questions. But for now, get cozy, settle in, and let's dive into your next chapter of Happily Ever After. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After. It's me, Hannah, and this week I am joined by my lovely chum Katie and a room full of my nearest and dearest, as I will be sharing the live Q&A that we held for my book launch last week. First, let me say welcome back to the new season of Happily Ever After. For the next 10 weeks, you can expect weekly podcasts with lots of lovely guests and the odd solo appearance from me. And we'll be talking about all our favourite juicy topics as ever, from the incredible visualizations that I personally have had that has changed everything for me recently, to manifesting more money and also settling into a calmer way of life, because it's not always easy if you are used to a bit of a roller coaster. Over the next few weeks, I have Amber Horrocks of sex band fame coming on, and I'm also speaking to my shamanic business coach I've been working with over the summer, Rachel Smithbone, and she's got some amazing pearls of wisdom to share as always. So, yes, on to my book. It was published on the 18th of September, so we had a big party. It was this time last week in the Bound in Whitley Bay. And it was absolutely gorgeous and overwhelming. And I was so supported beforehand that it meant I had loads of space to fully sit in the discomfort of celebrating something that I've done, which I know loads of people will be able to relate to, because how many people say, oh, I don't want to have a birthday party, I don't want to celebrate. Like, it's really quite a common feeling. And just beforehand, I remember sitting there and I'm like, I just wish I could crawl into a little hole, because it's just weird. It's just weird what the human psyche does, but I just really wanted to disappear and not have this moment, even though I knew it was really important. So yeah, I was like, we definitely have to do this, but I'm going to fully feel that I feel uncomfortable about it. And that's totally fine. But I also know that when we do something that's really big and something that's important and something that changes us, that we have to be witnessed. It has to be seen by our loved ones, and for people to acknowledge that they know that it's happened. So yeah, and the next day my friend Joanne put it perfectly, because she was like, have you got a love hangover? And it's similar to like the overshare hangover that you can get, where you just feel a bit vulnerable, don't you? It's like, oh, here's this thing that I've done, I hope you like it. And that's, yeah, it's perfectly natural to feel like that. So yeah, a bit of a love hangover, but also just so much gratitude for all the people that came out. And yeah, just some really lovely feedback as well. So I would love you to buy a copy of How to Divorce Sober and let me know what you think. You'll probably recognize lots of the content from the podcast. I've included so much of all just the amazing nuggets that have been gathered over the last 2 years, and what really stood out is helping me work out what my story was. So you can buy the book at the moment for only 99p on Amazon, and it's going to be that price until 5 p.m. on Friday. So that's this Friday, the 27th of September. And I would love to hear what you have to say about it and what you can relate to, because obviously you might not be sober, you might not be getting divorced, but I think there is something in there that you will be able to connect to. And Yeah, just let me know what you think. So without further ado, here is the chat with Katie and myself that we had at the book launch last week. Shall we go? I haven't got anything to do, Katie. Oi! Oi! Hello, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming. Honestly, it really means the world for you to bear witness to the fact I have finally got this out of me. It wasn't very pleasant, but it's happened. And massive thank you to The Bound for hosting us tonight, and to Dan for the millions of things that you've done to hold it all together, and to Roz, who helped me make the room look beautiful, and to Moja, who the book literally, especially Tony, helped me pull everything together and make it make sense. But the biggest thank you goes to Katie, my chum. The whole book is dedicated to you. I know! It says, for Katie, my chum, this wouldn't exist without you and your devotion to oversharing.
I'm devoted.
So the backstory to me and Katie is that about 15 years ago, I had an event management company, and Katie came and worked for us for like a year, and then we just went our separate ways. I had kids, didn't see Katie, and then came back to Whitley Bay, and we literally bumped into each other on the street. And I was like, I felt like it happened for a reason, that you'd come back into my life. And then I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. Will you be involved? And she ended up basically producing 75 of the 85 episodes and just coming on the journey with me. And I didn't know at the time what we were doing, but so much of that content then went into this book. So yeah, so it was really fun actually going back through all the episodes and being like, God, we really talk a lot of shit, but we also really got to the heart of what was going on and what we wanted to do, or what I wanted to do. I couldn't have worked it out on my own. So thank you so much. So thanks for coming to do this with me today. Yeah, so I'll hand over to Katie.
Hi everybody. I guess normally when we do this, it's in a slightly different setting, so this is slightly more intimidating with the people here than it is when we do it at home alone, but we're going to try and make it as much like what you've heard before, with some questions about the book along the way as well. So Hannah's kind of just told the story of how I started working for her and like how I got back into it, but I didn't know that any of this was coming along either. It was kind of just like we bumped into each other, and then she sent me a text message and was really keen to get a coffee in the diary, and I was like, well, that's nice that she wants to reconnect. And we sat down and she was like, how have you been for the past 10 years, and do you know how to use social media? And I was like, something strange about this.
It's so normal, chit chat.
But obviously it became clear that actually she wanted us to work together again, and that was really nice and welcomed. And thank you for doing that, because I had a really great time while I was doing it, and still do whenever we do stuff together. And there was loads of ideas going on at the time, wasn't there? Like we were thinking maybe it'll be an event, maybe it'll be coaching. And one of the ideas that was kind of tossed around at the time was that we'd do the book. So I guess I want to hear your story on how the book came to fruition.
So I think I always knew that I wanted to do the book in some capacity, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And it was around the time that I got, I'll tell you, it was like 2 weeks after I got the divorce papers. And I was like sat with a trending forecaster and picking her brains, like totally normal chit chat. And I was like, being sober's trending, isn't it? So I was like, if I put that in the title, then I feel like this could work. But obviously it was like so much more than that. Like that's just a title. But that is basically where it came from. I was like, right, I'm going to do this then. Fine.
Yeah, and look at this amazing book that you've got out of it as well. Like, how was the process? How did it feel to be writing it?
There were bits that were really fun, and I literally probably wrote the majority, and I just forced myself to sit down over the 3-day period and pull it all together. And it was like, okay, I feel like we've got something. Obviously, Tony will tell you that something was questionable. But yeah, that bit was fine. The thing that was super painful was just getting the damn thing over the line and just being like, how much can I share? What's actually helpful? What's oversharing? What's throwing my ex under the bus? Like all of that stuff, I really had to dig deep to kind of go, what's the core of this, and what is the person who needs it going to get from this? Like, how much do they need to know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was big key.
And did you think that was like the hardest part, or then like what was the hardest bit of it?
That just being like, how much can I say and how much should I share? Because I knew that past the first section, like the rest of it, I felt like it was really helpful, and literally everything that I did to pull myself out of a really crap place. Mm-hmm. But that first bit's like, how much of the story do you need to tell so that the person who needs it can see themselves in it without going too much into, you know, I don't want my kids to read it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think you've like really done a fantastic job at that, and I know I would think that, but like you know, I find it so relatable myself, considering I'm not sober and I've never been divorced. Like, I think it's like the kind of book that anybody that's been through a breakup should read. You know, it's really got that message behind it, and I think it's helpful for everybody.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's kind of the place that it came from, is what do you need to hear when you feel stuck? Mm-hmm. Like, that's where it came from.
Yeah. Lovely. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Would you like to read us a little bit?
Yes, I would. So, the lovely Cara Giles, who is in the room, author, celebrated Northeast writer of 12 Moons, A Year Under a Shared Sky. If you haven't read it, you absolutely have to, because it's from a divorce perspective. It was one of the first books that I read where I was like, oh, okay, she gets it. And just relating to your kids and all of the other stuff that's going on. So Cara wrote this for me, and I'll just read the first section to give you an idea. Divorce is still a bit of a dirty word. It brings with it connotations of failure and shame, which is a pity, because despite the grief and turmoil that accompanies the end of a marriage, divorce also offers a unique opportunity for reinvention. It's possible to build a brave new world from the ashes of a broken one. My divorce hovered on the horizon for a long time. It took me several years to finally make the call to end my marriage. And by the time I did, my self-esteem had crashed to an all-time low. It's very hard to make important decisions from a place of zero confidence and emotional exhaustion. It can feel impossible to summon the strength required to travel the long roads towards a different kind of life for yourself. When my marriage ended, I felt very alone. Of course, I relied on both literal and metaphorical hands of friends and family to pull me along through extremely stormy waters. But I felt unlovable and broken. I wished I'd had this book to keep me company. So that is basically what I would have hoped, that people could pick this up and be like, oh, okay. Because when you're in it, you're like, I'm literally the only person who's experiencing this. And obviously that's not true. Like millions of people do. Yeah. And it's an opportunity to actually come out the other side so much happier.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and that was beautiful, Karen. So I'm interested in the back cover and the little cartoon that we've got on there and where that came from. Can you tell me any more about that?
Yes, so I basically walked around the bound and went, I like that cover and I like that cover, so we'll put them together. And then Sophie, who lots of you will know, was like, it needs to be green and pink. And I was like, okay, right, green, pink. So this started off as just, this is me 7 years ago. That's literally a photo, and we went, oh, we'll turn it into a cartoon so it looks like the other book. And then in the process of that really tricky bit that I was telling you about, where I was wading through it at the end, this ended up becoming like the muse. So I almost had to go into like meditation with this person to say, what is it that you need to hear? Like, it was a bit crazy. I was feeling a bit crazy. It was like the summer holidays. I'm like, how do we get this over the line? And in the end, I had to sit with her and be like, what is it that you need to hear? Because that's basically, it sounds weird, but it's basically for me 7 years ago. Like, if you feel that desperate, that sad, what steps do you need to take to come out of it?
Mm-hmm. And you know what I think is quite striking? You know, I can't ever imagine you as that person, like knowing you as you are now.
I've got the photo. I can probably share it next week and I'll be like, that was me.
Yeah. Like even the black top. I can't imagine you in the black top.
I hadn't had my colours done then.
There's an episode on that.
Episode. It's just before Cath's, I think. One of our colours.
Lovely. So another thing that I want to know about is how it felt to finally have the hard copy of the book in your hand.
So I was in the Mojo Studios because I think we just finished recording, and I went in to finish recording the audiobook, and they're like, your book's here, and I'm like, don't know what to do with that. But it wasn't even a disgust, it was just a nothing, like I didn't feel anything. So, and I remember Rachel coming in the next day and going, how was Hannah, was she excited? And they were like, she was a bit flat. So I just kind of went, okay, that's obviously how I feel today, and I'll just sleep on it and kind of put it on the sofa next to me and watch some telly. And I was like, so basically the next day I went into another meditation, and I'm like bringing the book with me. I'm going, right, what is going on here? And I discovered it was like having a child, but this one's going to be really potentially judged. And so there were like all of these threads coming out of the back of it that were attached to all these people that were judging it. Been crazy. So I cut the cord with all of these like in my mind, and then I was able to bring it in and be like, yes, you are mine, and it's okay. We'll put a bubble around us and ignore any negative stuff that comes our way.
You can't underestimate the power of the cord cutting meditation, I
feel. It really works.
Yeah.
Like energetically, it's like obviously kind of in the mind and controlling your emotions, but I find it very helpful.
It really does work.
You've used it, haven't you?
I have, and it was very successful. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I have to try that again sometime.
Yeah, because I've discovered cords can regrow as you interact with people.
Oh.
So you have to keep doing it. See my dad's in there going, what?
Are you worried about the threads growing back on the book?
I mean, they probably will. But, you know, I've got the toolkit.
You do, yeah. It's back. It's
bring it back
effective.
in. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you feel better about it now. Like, I think I've heard before that sometimes when you go through the book writing process, it can be a bit like reflective of that period of your life, and then when you get to the end point and it's published, like it's not really you anymore. And I guess that's kind of reflected in who you were writing it for. Like, it's not you anymore, the person in the book. It's a story for them.
Yeah.
For anybody going through that, but it's not you anymore.
Yes. And the other thing about the book is I kind of had this feeling like it's almost like a plug in a big wall, and on the other side is like loads of fresh water, and I'm stuck in the mud right now, so I need to just get it out. And I kind of don't want to, because I don't know what's on the other side, and the unknown's a bit scary, but we'll do it, and then hopefully all this fresh water is going to flood through, and it's the beginning of what I really want to be doing with my life.
Mm-hmm. And you preach all the time about accepting help. Maybe you need help pulling the plug out.
Come on, everybody. This is
interactive part.
But from like an emotional sense, I think that is what this is. This is like all the people that I love in a room supporting me and going like, right, we'll get that plug out then, shall we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get out the mud.
Good. I think you've got another section for us to read as well.
So this is from the end, where the chapter is called the section, Congratulations, you're divorced. So, how I felt when it was all over. 2 days after I turned 40, I discovered I was finally divorced. It had taken nearly 3 years, and everyone was like, are you going to have a divorce party? And honestly, that was the last thing on my mind. I suppose turning 40 is a bit of a milestone. It would have been a time for reflection anyway, but my ex and I had planned a big, exciting holiday with family and friends to mark the occasion. Obviously, that didn't pan out, and I got my divorce papers instead. Birthdays aside, this is exactly how I felt to be divorced. I will never forget where I was when I found out. People of my generation and older will tell you that they remember exactly where they were when Princess Diana died or when the Twin Towers were hit. And I can remember when the divorce came through in full Technicolor. I know exactly where I was and exactly what I was doing. I was in Lidl, choosing which children's yogurts to buy. My ex sent me a text to tell me the news. It was so surreal, all those days, months and years of heartache and bravery and fighting to be free. And it all came down to a text in the fridge section of Lidl. That's it, all over. The moment was nowhere near as big as I felt it should have been. It needed a full marching band and maybe a 6-gun salute to acknowledge what we'd just been through, what we'd survived. Not some cold dairy products and frantic shoppers. I felt like I wanted to tap people on the shoulder to tell them, so I'd at least have someone to bear witness to that moment in history, even though it was just my history.
That's going to help lots of people reading that. I really feel it is very relatable, isn't it? And I guess, like, you didn't get the divorce party, but this kind of is your divorce party, isn't it? Yeah.
And the people bearing witness, I expect a marching band shortly.
So that's kind of all I've got in terms of questions for Hannah. But I wondered if anybody else did, or if anybody wanted to ask anything about the book.
Something we've all been discussing, where do we buy it, how do we buy it? Do we buy the Kindle version and the paperback version? Which ones to do?
Yeah, buy every version.
All the versions.
I'm glad you asked that. So you can buy the paper copy today downstairs, and I'll be signing if you want that. I don't have to scribble in it if you don't want me to. And yeah, all the other versions are available online as well.
You briefly mentioned a little hint of thinking about what's next. What do you think is next?
Love stuff. The next book is definitely called How to Fall in Love Sober. Thanks to my friends over here in the Dip Club. Yeah, so that's the plan. So we can move away from heartbreak and into how do we find healthy love for ourselves, for, accepting the love that we would like from people, that kind of thing.
If someone could take away one lesson from it, what would be the main thing you want people to learn from the book?
Why didn't you text me this first? I think it's probably slow down. Like, just take a breath and feel what you're feeling and sleep on it is probably the one biggest thing I've learned about everything. Even choosing shoes.
My mum says it'll always feel better in the morning.
It does! It genuinely does feel better in the morning. Sleep. You got a question?
Yeah, sure. I just say I read the book last week. It's brilliant. I hope you all buy it. I was nervous reading it as dad and wondering whether or not I was going to be accused of Philip Larkin's failings. But I don't think that. I thought it was a very kind book, particularly kind towards your ex, and I want to applaud you for that. I found the book helpful thinking about other kinds of addiction besides addiction to alcohol, addiction to work, addiction to all sorts of things. And I don't know whether you realise, have you thought about whether or not it will have a wider impact than just folks who need to break free of alcohol addiction and bad relationships?
Well, I think that's the thing that from giving up drinking, I was like, oh, just because you've given that up doesn't mean that you've given up the pattern that caused it in the first place. So it's really nice to be like, all right, I've done that now, I've given that up. But actually, sadly, now you have to go and work out why you were doing it in the first place. And that's why it's so relatable for everything else. Because it's so easy to be like, I don't feel great, so I'm going to go on a dating app.
people can get addicted to that hit of like just somebody liking you or scrolling Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a brilliant book. Well done. Congratulations. And it's raw. It's raw and honest.
People love raw and honest.
I mean, I'll just add that there was some terrific advice in there, whether you gave up alcohol or not. There was a lot of really excellent advice for anyone who's getting divorced at any point. I wish I'd had the book when I'd read it as well. And I wish
One of my BT
I really wished, as I said to you in the email, I really wish that the book had been available when I was getting divorced.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else, anybody? No,
Just want to get their hands on it now.
It's probably time.
Oh, the 11th hour!
Question. I just want to say, like from a fellow single parent who has created something, I just want to say like what a hard thing it is to do and how inspiring I find you to be. And I got divorced, but I didn't get divorced sober, but definitely I wish I'd had that book, and I hope that people will read it and see that there's a life beyond, the sadness, and that actually you can build an even bigger life. And yeah, I just want to say I'm proud of you, and it's a really fabulous book, so please share it with all your friends and shout from the rooftops. It's great. Well done, Hannah. Well done.
That was me and Katie chatting at the book launch of How to Divorce Sober last week. The book is out now, and for the rest of the week, until 5 p.m. on Friday, the 27th of September, you can buy the ebook for just 99p. I would love your support with this, so if you could snap up a copy, that would be amazing. Have a read and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. All the details you need are in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do hit the subscribe button and leave a review. It really helps more people find the show. And if you know someone who'd love these stories, feel free to share it with them too. As you know, I love hearing from you, so please do reach out on Instagram @HannahHarveyUK or through my website hannahharvey.uk.